talk about what I've learned in this experience of teaching this. I've literally led thousands of people through this process now, and so I've learned a lot from having so many experiences with so many people and getting a lot of feedback in terms of what's working and what's not. So what I want to share with you is in terms of the different body types, what I find works and what I find are really the benefits for Vatas and Pittas and Kaphas on the road of detoxifying. And I also want to talk about just in general, on the yogic path, we come to the mat in that first class or that first teacher that we have we start to get an insight into what this world of yoga is. And if we keep at it and we experience class after class and maybe a few different teachers, we start to see that there's a lot, that it's a very big field, this field of yoga, and that the inner universe is equally big. We start to discover things about ourselves we never knew. We start to change and grow in ways that we may have even given up on. I know for my students, they often say, I feel 10 years younger, even though I've never been this old. 65-year-olds saying, wow, I didn't feel this good when I was 40. That's not unusual on the path of yoga. And when we really start to pay attention to how much is changed in our life on this path, we start to see that we're constantly changing. The process of detox is a way of taking some time out of our normal everyday life and starting to shift some of our habits and patterns into alignment with who we want to be now, who we want to be next. And again, if our society, our community, or our culture, even our family culture, isn't as familiar with this, it might seem like you're being somewhat outlandish, like you're just being difficult. But inside you might know, like, I just need a timeout right now. I just need to take all systems down to zero. And you might feel a desire to be less involved in socialization, just in relationships. You might feel a desire to just not have as much on your plate and to be able to do less. And you might also have a lack of appetite, just inside, just a feeling of like, I'm not really interested in anything, and I'm going to pay attention to that and just very much simplify my diet for a while and see what happens. And what starts to happen is if there is ama in the system, which we talked about before, that starts to get incinerated. The practice of detoxification in Ayurvedic perspective, it's really less about kicking the doshas out. It's less about processes of elimination, and it's more about processes of incineration. How do you just light the fire to incinerate the toxins? There are also practices that organize and move the excess doshas out of the body. So it's a yes and, it's a both. But it's an interesting to think of. Even if we just simplify our diets to allow sama agni, to allow our digestion to be more efficient, we'll end up burning the toxins. And sometimes a detox can be as simple as that. So I just want to start by saying, in the realm of detox, there's, going from a very light home rejuvenation to a very deep cleanse. And everything in between. The way that I like to teach detox in the yoga community is that it's just something that needs to be done once to twice a year. I personally prefer twice a year. One time it's a deep experience, the other time it's a light experience. And it's a way of just syncing up with nature's rhythm, syncing up with what phase of my life is ending and which new phase is beginning. And the cleanse marks that time. It refreshes my palate. It deepens my practice. It deepens my connection to intuition, or that vijnana maya kosha. It allows more space for spirit. And it's just become an absolute anchor in my annual schedule. I've also found that to be true for literally thousands of students at this point, to know that if you're not doing this, it's going to help you to do it. If you're kind of interested, follow that interest. It's really important. And if you cleanse more sporadically, see what happens when you do it on schedule, whether you do it as a deep cleanse or more as a rejuvenating home retreat. Now let's look at, in terms of the different body types, why Vata Prakruti, Vata constitutions cleanse, why Pitta constitutions cleanse, why Kapha types cleanse, and how to approach it.